E3 Metals Corp has changed its name very recently to E3 Lithium. So you may know it as E3 Metals, but it is actually now E3 Lithium. And it's moved to the top tier of the TSXV because it's doing very well. E3 is developing its 100% owned lithium brine project in Alberta, Canada, covering 600,000 hectares of the Leduc Aquifer, one of the largest lithium resources in the world. The most advanced prospect amongst all those 600,000 hectares is Clearwater, which E3 is busy commercializing, and with planned annual production of at least 20,000 tons of LHM by 2026. Clearwater's economics are compelling and come with the added potential to turn Alberta into a major lithium hub. So the sky really is the limit there. The Canadian oil major Imperial Oil have just bought a strategic shareholding in E3. Isn't that interesting? Lithium and a major oil company linking up. And Chris Doornbos, President and CEO, is here to tell us more. Greetings, Chris.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's absolutely fantastic to have you on, and you're opening the show tonight, Chris. So whereabouts are you talking to us from?
So I'm actually down in Phoenix at the Fast Markets Lithium Supply Conference.
Wow. So and where was home for you? Where's headquarters for E3?
So we're based in Calgary, Alberta, in basically the oil-centric part of Canada.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. All right, Chris, over to you. No good me explaining your company. You explain your company to us.
You've done a great job so far, Donald. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. So tonight I'm going to talk to you guys about E3 Lithium. As Donald mentioned, we recently changed our name from E3 Metals, and it really came from the focus that the company has put on developing lithium assets. We are working in Alberta, which is the oil-centric part of Canada. The reason that we feel that the name change was imminent and for us something important is that we are now fully focusing on developing lithium source. So we have a massive resource in the province, 7 million tons, and we're looking to expand that. We also have developed a proprietary ion exchange technology that falls into the direct lithium extraction or DLE space that all works for our project, but we believe can work across the globe on brine projects. Our goal is to become a world leader in responsibly sourced sustainable lithium. The opportunity to do that in Alberta is fantastic. We've got a really strong workforce here, even the way that we operate. And this is why when you look at the recent agreement that we've made with Imperial Oil, ExxonMobil, really focuses on the advantages of being in this oil and gas space. And the way that we operate here will be just like oil and gas, and that means that we can do so sustainably. And I'll talk to you guys about that today. So a little bit on the investment. It is big news. It just came out last week. So for us, we've obviously been working on this for quite some time, but we announced it last week. It's the first investment from major oil in a lithium producer and developer, such as E3. And we're very excited to be leading the charge. As I mentioned, we operate in Alberta like an oil and gas company. And one of the things about the aquifer that we're working in, it was discovered by Imperial in 1947. And they have been working in our area specifically, the Clearwater area, since the 60s. They moved out of it in the 90s because it was out of oil, at least in terms of their economic thresholds. And now you're seeing them come back into this aquifer, which they well understand, to help E3 develop it for lithium. So they brought $5 million US, but the big thing that they bring is their powerhouse technical expertise to the table to help us push this project through to commercial. We've also consolidated a land package, so we have an option on their freehold land in the area, so we brought that together into one consolidated land package. And obviously, the goal of this is to get a project in the Clearwater up commercially operating. E3 offers sort of two big pillars that we stand on as a company, and this is where we hone in on the lithium side of things. We've got the proprietary technology, incredibly important for producing lithium from brines in the new sustainable way, which is closed loop systems. You're not using evaporation ponds, you're using an ion exchange extraction process. And I'll talk to you a bit about this further in the presentation. it enables us to extract lithium very efficiently without having to have huge land disturbances. And you combine that with the resource base that we have, means we have the two main pieces that are out there that are required to build this project. With the Imperial investment of about 6.3 million Canadian, we now have about 23 million Canadian dollars in the bank. So very well funded at the moment to get us through to the next big hurdle, which the pinnacle of that is the pre-feasibility study that we're working on, but lots of work in between. We have a very solid project that produces battery grade products. Unique in the space right now, very few current operating lithium projects, lithium producers make battery grade products. It's usually refined secondary processing. Because we have the infrastructure in Alberta, we have power, we have people, we have the workforce, we have all the things we need, we can build out the battery grade processing directly here in Alberta. We've been growing a team. Again, another big advantage being in the provinces and that we operate like oil and gas is that we don't have to go very far. Everyone we've hired, except for one person, has been hired out of Alberta's workforce. So extremely exciting. And this is that team. I mentioned everybody but Jonathan Nielsen, who's in the top right on the screen. We stole him from EPC, Developing Lithium Projects. He's our lithium process expert. The rest of the team has been hired out of Alberta's workforce. I'm very excited about these people. Robin and Caroline are down here with me in Phoenix. Caroline's going to be on a panel talking about DLE processing tomorrow, and E3 will be speaking as well tomorrow afternoon. A little bit on the lithium market. I'm not going to go through this too much. When you look at the landscape and being down here, you definitively see this. The two big things that have changed in the last couple of years that have brought lithium to the forefront is that all of the batteries now that are going into the battery market are lithium ion batteries. So all of the battery manufacturing capacity that's being built right now to power everything from computers to cars is lithium ion. So we're all in on lithium batteries. The other big thing that happened where the demand really comes from is the electric vehicle. They consume a lot of product into the cars, and every OEM in the world has committed to electrifying its fleet, at least in part, some of them, their entire fleets. And what that means is that the market for lithium is robust. It's different from other commodities because every new amount of lithium that is required has to be brought on from new production. You can't borrow it from other places. And that means by 2030, nickel, cobalt, those other elements go into the battery. So they're going to steal a market share, maybe 15 to 25% of those markets will be into batteries. Lithium will be over 90% of the lithium produced in this planet will be into batteries by 2030. So it's a very specialty product for the battery industry. It requires a certain quality, and that's where E3 comes in with our extraction processing. We've been one of those companies that hits our milestones. We've been very active in developing this technology over the past couple of years. Last year was a good year for us. 2022 is going to be our banner year. Started off with getting the prototype running in late last year, running it through the early part of this year. Obviously, we signed on with Imperial Exxon, and the milestones we have coming up are massive for the company. Donald mentioned our economics. So we have a $1.1 billion NPV based on a $14,000 per ton sale price. Lithium, as you probably well know, is currently selling somewhere between $60,000 and $70,000 per ton. I think that's a non-sustainable long-term price. I think you're seeing long-term offtake prices somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000. When you run these numbers at the 20,000 mark, the NPV rises to almost $3 billion. So very, very robust project here, a robust market supporting it. So all the fundamentals you need to build are here. And we have one of the lower operating costs per ton in the space, so $3,600 US per ton of battery quality products. So very strong, very excited about these. We're currently working through our pre-feasibility study right now. And how this looks is it's a closed loop system. So we pump the brine from this aquifer. And the next slide, I'll show you a map of what that looks like. We pump the brine from the aquifer. We put it through our ion exchange process where we extract the lithium out of that brine, and then we put the brine directly back into the aquifer. So we do not expose it to the atmosphere. We don't evaporate it. We use an ion exchange process to strip the lithium out, and we make a concentrated solution. which is a precursor to any lithium processing on the planet. So we don't do anything new on the back end. We just use conventional lithium processing to make the battery quality products. Lithium hydroxide is what we're aiming for because of the North American market for high nickel cathode batteries require hydroxide. So, and that's where North America is going. When you look at it from the technology side of things, the best analogy to what we're doing is a water softener. So E3's system is effectively just a water treatment solution, but we treat lithium. So that's what we take out of the brine. But the system works like any ion exchange processing, which we're gonna have a uranium company on here after Sigma, and half of the uranium in the world is treated using ion exchange. Water, municipal water is treated using ion exchange. It's very, very common. It works really well in high flow environments. And that's why we like it, because we can flow lots of water across it. We can extract lithium over 90% recovery at 75 milligrams per liter, and we create a lithium concentrate that's higher grade. And it's really simple how this works. As the lithium flows past a column of this material, these beads that we've invented and now are commercializing, the lithium binds to the beads. So by the time the brine reaches the bottom of the tank, all the lithium is attracted to the bead, and there's no more lithium in the brine, and that just flows back to the aquifer. Every so often, these beads fill up with lithium, so we stop the flow of brine and we wash off the lithium, we create a concentrate. The way that we concentrate is quite simple. We just use less of the concentrate by volume than the original brine, so we get all the lithium off in a smaller volume. And because it's only selected for lithium, we get a very pure product. So we get a highly concentrated, highly pure lithium. We're talking 60 to 70% lithium in our concentrate. And when you compare that to a hard rock project, they're sitting between 6 and 7% usually in their concentrate. So we've got 10 times more lithium in a much simpler process. And then we can refine that into lithium hydroxide using what everyone else uses to make the final product. This is our project area. On the bottom of this map, Calgary, and the top of this map, Edmonton. That's 300 kilometers apart. This aquifer is absolutely massive. When it was discovered in the 40s, it started the oil rush in Alberta, and it produced for 60 years in the province at high volumes. And so we're now repurposing this historic oil producer and turning it into a lithium producer. The benefit there is that we have a lot of information. We understand how to produce from this. So the development production risk out of this aquifer is very low, which is of a huge benefit to us because that's where a lot of the risk generally lies. So we're focusing right now on our Clearwater project, as Donald mentioned, which is in the south end of this project. When you look at it from the perspective of what we're doing, this is Farmers Fields, just north of Calgary, which is 1.2 million population, 1.3 million population. We are currently drilling a well. I'll talk to you about that, but the crew from that drill rig live in the area. The workforce is here, welders for pipelines, drillers for drilling, professional staff, the whole, and both ends of the spectrum, everything in between. The workforce is in Alberta to develop this project. Another big advantage we have is a very supportive government. The energy minister proposed Bill 82 last year. It was ratified into law in December. That gave the regulatory authority to the AER, and then the AER is who manages oil and gas. So now the oil and gas regulator, with a long history and a very, very, very efficient system for permitting, is now regulating lithium. And just to give you an example, we got our well licenses. Well licenses in the province take about 4 to 8 weeks to get granted. If it's a production well license, that gives you the ability to effectively mine your project, gives you the ability to extract the resource from the ground. So very, very exciting to have them streamline our development process. Looking at the DLE side of things, it is on the ESG front, very sustainable relative to how lithium is produced elsewhere in the world. Very, very small footprint, 3% of the land disturbance relative to larger mines. We don't interact with fresh water, so we don't have that freshwater interference, which is really a solid development for us because we're able to produce this very sustainable, which is incredibly important for Europe, especially when they're looking at the total footprint of this project. We're also looking at reducing our carbon emissions. I think this is a big goal for E3 to be on the low carbon side of the development. What this does is it allows us to produce the lithium with a less than 5 ton per ton ratio. And when you talk to people looking for offtake, that's an incredibly important metric that they value your product on. Looking a bit forward into 2022, into 2023, these are our 3 big milestones. These are huge for us because we've been wanting to do these 3 things for years now, and we are finally doing all of them right now. So we're drilling right now today. Alberta's first lithium well is currently in the works. We're probably down about 1,000 meters. Very exciting. I've been wanting to drill this well since 2016. So very exciting that we're putting this well in. This well is going into our actual brine production zone. It's going to test a bunch of stuff that we're really excited to see. There's lots of data and infrastructure in the area, but where we want to produce from, this is that well to test that. We're also looking at piloting our process here very shortly. So we're currently designing the pilot. We expect in construction this fall and now operating in the new year. So very excited to have that happen. And then obviously producing battery grade products is what this is all about. We're currently working with some, as I mentioned, conventional lithium processors to develop that flow sheet. And then we'll, through that, produce battery grade lithium hydroxide to demonstrate to the market and start attracting those critical off-takers that we'll need to build this project. In the bigger picture, so 2022, obviously pretty pivotal. 2023, you'll see us upgrade M&I. So one of the other reasons to drill these wells is to get the confidence up in the resource so we can upgrade to measured indicated, means we can book the reserve in the pre-feasibility study. We hope to have that all out mid next year. So about this time next year, pre-fees, and then we go into the normal project development mode. So the next 12 months for us are going to be huge movements for the company. Very exciting about commercializing this, and this is a big step the next 12 months to getting the scope commercial. So then after that, we do the detailed engineering design, we look for project finance, apply for all of the permits we require here in Alberta to get the project running, and then we start construction in 2025, hopefully operating by 2026 or so. Right now we're trading about 260, 270. We've obviously had a big, we had a big depression with the market as it did in the last couple months, but with the Imperial news, the stock has been trading very nicely back up to the 260 range. And obviously we're just getting started with that development. So very excited about where we are at and where we plan to go. When you look at the value on a peer comparison basis, we're still about 10 times undervalued relative to our major DLE peers in the space. So I think there's a lot of room for this stock to move as we accomplish some of these major milestones that our peers have accomplished and have seen their value accrete. Excellent. So I'm going to leave it here, Donald, and we can open it up for some Q&A.
I'm having lots of questions flood in, so I'll be very brief with my own ones. In practical terms, let's discuss Imperial. In practical terms, how will the Imperial deal be? How will they, as a strategic partner, be able to help you develop the Clearwater project, Chris? What do they actually bring to the party? What are the benefits of having Imperial as your partner?
Right. So other than the intrinsic, like we're consolidating the land package, we have the option on that freehold land and the 6 million, little over 6 million they've invested. They've committed to
say that slowly, Chris. They give you their land package. You get access.
We have an option on the freehold land. Yeah.
So that's a big deal, though. Don't rush that. That's a big point.
It's a big point because they're the only people in the world that could give us that land option. So we can get, like, the $6 million is important. Obviously, it gets us all the way through the pre-feasibility study, but you can raise money on the market. What you can't get on the market is that land. So 100% pretty critical. It was the impetus to start the discussion with them, was around the land. And we've been working with them for 3.5 years, just as an industry partner, right? Because they have that freehold land. Now that we have an option on it, it certainly secures that under the E3 banner and promotes us going forward. A big piece of what they're bringing to the table is also their expertise. So, they have a well-oiled, pardon the pun, machine that enables them to, they in Alberta, they treat huge amounts of water in their oil operations. They understand how to move water, how to treat water, because they need to do it for their oil operations, because all oil comes out with water of some form, and you have to manage that. So they have lots of skill set in that area. They also have obviously very sophisticated drilling completions team, reservoir team, all of that sort of stuff. And so they're bringing that as basically as an advice. You can think of it as advisory to the company. So they're providing that expertise to us. They're providing data. More importantly, they were the owner and operator of this field for most of its life. So they have the history in it. They have the data. They have the expertise for developing this particular aquifer because it was their bread and butter in Alberta up until the 90s.
And reputationally, having Imperial on board is quite a big deal.
I think so. You know, it's the only major oil company that's invested in lithium. I think you're going to see more in the future. I think there are oil companies out there, the big ones that are kicking tires, looking for how to get into the space. But yeah, I mean, it bolsters that. I think that from the perspective of an oil and gas company, nobody knows the market for oil and where it's shifting and what the impact of EVs is going to be on it than an oil and gas company. And having worked for Suncor, Petro-Canada in the past, we get exposed to that type of knowledge and that database that they have and they track. So they understand what's coming. They understand what you know, the 2030 predictions of EVs on the road is going to mean for their bottom line and their sales of petroleum products. So you know, I think it makes a lot of sense. And they also are excellent operators in Alberta. So that
let me just ask this really basic question. You're actually drilling for brine rather than drilling for oil.
Yeah.
So is it as simple as you can roll out lots of different wells?
Yeah, exactly. So when we look to put this into commercial production, we would drill, our PE outlined 60 wells that we would drill to produce the brine that we needed to make this project produce 20,000 tons.
And how much does it cost to drill a well?
About $1 million, $1.5 million, depending on where you're at. Okay,
so that's absolutely fantastic. Now,
and that's all in our PA. It's on our website. People can dig into that and look at the economics.
Okay, now to the questions which we're getting from the audience. Josh Cole. So take a bow, Josh. Josh is a regular. He likes to ask questions. I'm glad somebody does. What makes you? Oh, this is a tough one. What makes you different? What makes you special compared to the other planned projects? It appears. Oh, he's being a bit nasty. He says you're behind others in the space, such as Lake Resources, Cleantech Lithium. We work with Cleantech. We know them. They're nice guys. How will you encourage end users to take your lithium instead of theirs? So there's quite a lot in there.
Yeah. Look, I think let's just look at it from a peer comparison. You know, there's going to be a big enough market for lithium that I don't think we're going to have to be competing for our products. I think if we produce a battery quality product, we're going to have no problems attracting an off-taker. There's lots of interest here at the conference. Obviously, having a big backer like Imperial Exxon bolsters that, brings a lot of confidence to the table from potential off-takers. So I don't think the supply side of things and finding that off-taker is going to be a challenge for us at all. We've been hesitant to sign anything because we want to get through a couple big hurdles like the pre-fees. For us, I think that's pivotal. Other companies have signed off-take agreements earlier than pre-fees, and I think for us, so we're just, when you look at it compared to Lake, you mentioned Lake, we're probably about a year behind them. And I think how we separate ourselves is that Lake is a resource company that is utilizing a technology from another company. E3 has both the technology and the resource. So we bolster both sides. We're going to get a better value because we have to pay a royalty or licensing fee on that license, on the technology, sorry. But we're about a year behind them. So when you look at, from a value perspective, when you look at, if you plot where Lake has achieved its value over time, it's in the next 12 months for E3. So if you're looking for a Lake version 2, something like that, where you can ride that advancement, I think that E3 offers that, because it's just a time factor. It's just we've developed our own technology, so we spent the time and energy doing that.
So that's your pitch. Look, invest in us. We're going to grow.
100%. I mean, it is at this point in time, we're funded. We have the technology. We have all of the pieces. So it's just time at this point.
Okay.
Proving it out, demonstrating everything.
Josh's second question: do you have singular access to the aquifer? It's tough sharing a basin, thinks Josh.
Yeah. So if you look at where we're developing, the reason we picked the Clearwater area is because it is a 45-kilometer wide aquifer, and there's only one small little bit of petroleum production that's about 1 kilometer wide and about 13K long, and we have about 60 kilometers by 40 kilometers. So I would say 2% of the aquifer still has a bit of oil production in it. The rest is completely open for us to be able to produce the brine as needed. And so we're not, in an aquifer perspective, we don't compete with other
Do
producers.
off-takers prefer brine lithium or hard rock lithium?
What's that, sorry?
Do off-takers prefer to buy brine lithium or hard rock lithium?
I don't think they have a preference if your sustainability is equal. So first metric that people we talk to have is purity. Obviously, you have to meet that specification because they have to warranty the batteries, and so the purity is an important piece of that. The next question is, what is your sustainability? What is your carbon footprint? And so I think that the DLE projects, and not brines writ large, but direct extraction brines, offer a sustainable process that nobody else in the space can offer, because we don't have that big environmental footprint. We don't have that big land disturbance that hard rock mines and salars have. And it's just inherent to the way that we process, right? We didn't have to engineer that. It's just because we have a closed loop system, it's an ion exchange, a series of ion exchange columns rather than an evaporation pond. We have a very small footprint. We don't have the land disturbance. Okay. So I think that bolsters us, puts us ahead from an off-taker perspective because of the ESG.
And how do you plan to transport your lithium to end users, he asks?
So our plan right now is to make lithium hydroxide. Lithium hydroxide packages up in basically vacuum packed containers and shipped by rail. So it's a salt. That lithium hydroxide looks like a salt. Okay,
how interesting. All right. Peter Hodgkins, what's the wear and tear on the beads? So he's talking about your technology process, which is unique to you. What's the wear and tear on the beads? How often do they need replacing? Are the beads washed down with acid? I missed that bit.
Mm-hmm. So the beads definitely have a lifespan. And one of the things, the best way to look at it is from a cost perspective. So you look at our economics, we estimated about $16 million a year in the basically manufacturing and running through the beads that we have to produce 20,000 tons a year. So when you look at from a operational perspective, it's pretty small. It's a pretty small line item on our costing, and it does all of the hard work. But it definitely has a lifespan. We do use an acidified solution to strip the lithium, which is common in ion exchange processing. And obviously that has an impact as well on the lifespan. But the trade-off for us is that the kinetics are very fast, like we're talking minutes. And so what that means is we can flow higher volumes of brine. We're also able to get it down to the grades that we have. So we're 75 milligrams per liter. And for that, to get that economic, you have to flow lots of brine and you have to get recoveries in the high 90s. And that's what we have. So the two combined enable us to make a very economic project. And the cost of the materials is so basically inexpensive relative to the grand scheme of things that I guess the short answer is it lasts enough that we need it to last to make the project work for sure.
Okay, you've got $23 million dollars Canadian in the bank at the moment. The question is, does that take you through to December 2023?
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Current budget and financial model, we're into 2024 before we need to raise any additional capital. So in between now and then, the pre-feasibility will be out.
Okay, and a quick final question from an analyst, Gaius King. He says, quick question, do you recharge to aquifer after you've extracted the lithium? What distance will you need to pipe it from the original extraction hole?
Yeah, thanks, guys. I would say right now the PEA outlined, so we do put it back in the aquifer. So we pump it from one side, we put it back in another. It's called a water flood or a sweep. There's two thought processes, and right now we're working through with our engineering team headed by Kirsten, looking at you either sweep in a line or you sweep little sections. And so we're working through that right now, but all the brine that we take out will go back into the aquifer. That's how we maintain pressure support. So there's lots of background pressure. There's 1500 kPa of background pressure in this aquifer, which means we can pump it for a very long time without having to replace the water. But in terms of managing the aquifer over the lifespan of 35 years, we will be putting the water back in. And what you would basically do is you create a sweep and you're just basically stepping away over time as the lithium void water moves across the aquifer as you pump from the other side. So we call it the aquifer management plan. It's a pretty important piece, just like any mine plan of how you develop your resource. And that's what the technical team, and that's one of the things that Imperial can bring to the table as well, is their reservoir modelers. So we're looking forward to working with them. But yeah, that is a critical piece to it, the aquifer management plan.
Chris, you've been a complete star. You got through an enormous number of questions in a very short time there. Well done. We really appreciate that. And enjoy your conference. I hope it goes well, and I'm sure your project will go well. It sounds terrific. Thank you.
Yeah,
so
we're
much.
very excited. Thanks for having us on, Donald.
I think our audience are excited as well on your behalf. So well done.